Hi, my name is Angie. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel. This is a channel where I like to make videos about books as well as videos about homeschool, mostly book related, so thank you for stopping by. Today's video is called the Chocolate Book Tag. It's a fun tag that goes around every year about this time in February. I was tagged by Angela over at Literature Science Alliance, as well as Katie over at Katie Totally Booked. And I really enjoy both these women's channels. Angela tends more towards science fiction and fantasy. And then Katie, I really enjoy Katie's channel. She's also new, but she has a real diverse reading taste. So this tag has a number of different prompts that all have to do with chocolate. So it is just a really kind of fun tag. So the first type of chocolate is dark chocolate. And this is a book that covers a dark topic. So the book I thought of that I have read fairly recently is The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. It is a really good book. It's a nonfiction book about a woman. Her name is Henrietta Lacks. Why I put a book about her in this dark chocolate category is because she was manipulated by the scientific community. So her cells have been used in cell cultures and molecular biology and different research labs around the country, around the world, for 20 plus years. And what's crazy is during graduate school, I used these cells. Most graduate students do. Most scientists have used these cells. They're called HeLa cells, H-E-L-A, Henrietta Lacks. This is basically her story where she gets cervical cancer and her cells keep copying each other or keep reproducing in an immortal fashion, which is not normal. There are checks and balances on our cells and the way they reproduce. And when the checks don't work, then it results in cancer. The doctors that were treating her harvested her cells and tried to grow them in the lab to see if they could use them to study cancer. And they turned out to be marvelous. They turned out to be exactly what the scientists needed. What makes this a hard story is the fact that they never asked for her consent. They never told her family. So she went through therapy and she died. She had young kids and tells the story of her children after she dies and how they are raised by, like, I can't remember if it's an aunt or a relative of some sort who hated their mom. And so that this woman abused the children and just treated them so poorly. And so it tells that story, but then throughout the whole thing, that she is never recognized for her contribution to science. I bet that's changed. I haven't really checked in since this book was published as to what the effect the book has had. But I hope that has changed, that the family has seen something for their mother's sacrifice, if you will. Okay, so that's the first book, the first chocolate. The second chocolate is white chocolate. Name a book that has been lighthearted or humorous in some way. So the book I thought of first was Eat, Pray, Love by Elizabeth Gilbert. I think I listened to this book a while ago, pretty much when it came out, so I don't know how long ago that was. It's about a woman, Elizabeth Gilbert. So it's a memoir, nonfiction story of how she kind of had this midlife crisis that happened post-divorce, that she just wanted to figure out who she was and what her life was about. And so she decided to travel the world in search of things. And so she went to Rome and she enjoyed the food. She just allowed herself to kind of heal and find joy. And then she went to India. She went to like this spiritual retreat place where you stay, you have chores, and there's all these different meditation prayer times. And she was searching out kind of her spirituality. And so that was her India journey. And then she went to Bali, and that's where she met her future husband and found out more kind of about love as she kind of healed in Rome, learned about kind of who she was and battled herself a little bit in India, and then kind of came full circle in Bali. It reads more like a fiction than nonfiction, but I really enjoyed it. It's a fun, lighthearted read. Okay, so the next chocolate is milk chocolate. It talks about a book that has received a lot of hype. And so I picked this book. I'm reading it, so I guess I can't recommend the story, but it has received a lot of hype. It's called The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, and it's by Stuart Turton. I've heard a lot about it. I've heard mostly good things, and I do enjoy mystery books, and that's why I picked it up, and I do want to finish it. Basically, it's a mystery novel about a woman, Evelyn Hardcastle, who is murdered, but the plot line is where the day repeats itself. So it has kind of a Groundhog's Day feel. She dies at night, and then there's an inspector involved. The day is retold but the inspector relives the day through different witnesses, from what I understand. Again, I'm very early in the book and I'm intrigued by it. I also hear it's a little strange, and so I could go either way on that. Sometimes too strange and I don't like it, but we'll see. Anyway, so that's a book with a lot of hype. And then the fourth chocolate is chocolate with caramel inside. So this is basically a book that makes you gooey and ooey inside. So it's a romance book, from what I can gather. I just made a video about this, my top favorite romance books of kind of all time, and I made it this current February, so I'm just gonna link it, and please go watch that if you're interested. I just don't want to rehash it for those of you who saw it. I'm gonna move on. So the fifth chocolate in this tag is a wafer-free KitKat. So it's basically a book that surprises you. And the book that came to mind was Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. So this book I read like over 10 years ago. So I was surprised on many levels in this story. So the first is it's science fiction, and I don't tend to read a lot of science fiction, but my roommate in college liked it. And so I got the audiobook and I started listening to it, and it surprised me in the sense that it was so good that I got distracted, that I literally ended up in the wrong state. I was aiming for Colorado and I ended up in North Dakota because I was so distracted by this book, and the interstate signs are not very clear. But that tells you how good of a book it was. It's a book about a boy named Ender who is recruited to a military training at the age of 6 years old. He goes through this training program because there are aliens that are threatening the safety of the planet. It's a really captivating story. And then the end just completely caught me by surprise. I just wasn't thinking that's what was happening. And so it's a very surprising book, and I really liked it. I thought it was very entertaining. And so the next chocolate is Snickers. It's basically a book that is making you go nuts. So I definitely have a book that is making me go nuts right now. I finished this 3 days ago. I loved it. I thought it was so good. It's basically about a girl, Vasya, who is growing up in the Russian wilderness north of Moscow, and there's magical elements to this story. It basically talks about her life and struggles as the youngest daughter of this family, and the mother died in childbirth. She gets a stepmother who is very against the old ways, some of the superstitions and fairy tales of that age in that part of the world. And she just doesn't fit the mold of a typical girl at that time. And it is fantastic. There's some slightly scary parts, and then some where you're just really excited and want to see what happened. And so I love this book. I wanted to read it. I knew it was going to be good. I heard kind of hype about it, but I didn't think I would like it this much. I liked it so much that I've actually got the used copies of this book and the next 2 in the trilogy, just because I am sure I'm going to like them. I loved this book so much. It was so good. So anyway, this is currently the book I'm going nuts about. Next chocolate to talk about is hot chocolate with cream and marshmallow. It's basically what's your comfort read. And for me, hands down, my husband knows this, it's Harry Potter. I tend to listen to these on audiobook a lot because I really like Jim Dale. I like his ability to bring the characters to life, and he just does an amazing job with his voice and telling the story and telling the different characters. So I love it. I mean, I love Harry Potter. A lot of people do. It's definitely a series that I'll go to when I'm just like, a little stressed and I just want an easy story with comfortable characters. And the last chocolate in this tag is Box of Chocolates. So a series that has a wide variety, a little something for everybody. I actually think this is kind of hard to pick. What I ended up with, which I think is a good choice, is the Chronicles of Narnia. I have been reading these aloud with my kids. We got some full color illustrated copies because it's more for my kids and to keep them engaged, but the storyline is really good. And these are marketed more towards kids, but I think they have a lot to give, even for an adult reader. And so I highly recommend the Chronicles of Narnia. Read them in whatever order you want. It took me forever to figure out if I should start with The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe or The Magician's Nephew. We actually started with The Magician's Nephew, and I'm fine with it. My kids did like it. They liked the whole jumping in pools and going into different worlds and things like that. So I think that's a series that a lot of people can get into, and it might also be a series that a lot of people have fond memories of from their childhood. So that is my last chocolate for this tag, and I want to thank Angela and Katie for both tagging me. And if you are interested in doing this tag, I know it's kind of near the end of February, but if you're interested, you should hop on. It's an enjoyable, kind of cute tag. Thank you all for taking the time to watch, and so please consider just subscribing and liking the video. And yeah, that's all I have for today. Take care and have a good day. Okay.